Okay, hello everybody. All right, let's call this meeting to an order. Our Measure J Commission meeting, September 19, 2019. Ariana, hello. Let's do roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Vice Chair Craig,
Here.
Commissioner Futter,
Very good.
Futer, thank you. Chair Gazan,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner I'm sorry,
That's okay, the branch.
LaBranch, thank you. Commissioner Lass,
Here.
Commissioner Robin,
Here.
Commissioner Soto,
Here.
we have a quorum.
All right. Okay, if we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will kick us off. Okay, before we accept this agenda, I wanted to add, I don't know if this would be under old business, new business. I just thought we should have a subcommittee check-in, because I know the Communications Committee has been meeting and up to some good things, as well as the Library Subcommittee I know has been meeting with some public forums, and if we just get an update on those, so wherever they can fall into the agenda. Is that? It- At the end?
Yeah, the commission comments.
Commissioner, okay.
And then I also have a correction for the adjournment. It's 4 p.m. and not 5:30 for the next meeting. That's my correction.
Oh. Yes, 4 o'clock, everybody.
I'll be here all by myself.
It'll be easy to take notes. Okay, does anyone, are we in acceptance or have a motion to accept the agenda?
I move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Approval of the minutes from the June 20th meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes from June 20, 2019.
And I'm sorry, one more correction.
Yeah.
You also have minutes there for May. So.
So we have to approve May as
yeah,
well?
I did, you May,
Oh, you
the
did?
month of May.
Okay. So approval for May and June?
I move that we accept both May and June.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Everyone's in favor. All right, this is a time for public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the Measure J Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Do we have anyone?
We do, Mr. Goins.
Excellent. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Goins, and I am a member of the Warm Sands Neighborhood Organization and a Sustainability Commissioner. And I'm here to talk about pedestrian improvements and crosswalks. So first, I want to say thank you for the work that you've been doing, looking at pedestrian improvements, at traffic issues in the city. I know that there have been a number of reports and activities related to that. And in my neighborhood, in Warm Sands, we have some very dangerous intersections and some areas that I would like to ask you to consider to look at. And those two areas are Ramon between Sunrise and Grenfall, and Ramon between Caballeros and Encilia. So I cross Ramon all the time, and it's like playing a video game, you know. You have to decide when you're going to run across the street since there aren't any crosswalks. So I'd like for you to think about, as you're thinking about your priorities, please consider Ramon Road. I know that there was some talk about it in the past, and it sort of was maybe one of the lesser priorities, but I know some of those earlier projects have been completed. So now might be the time to think about Ramon Road and taking care of our pedestrian issues. So that's all I have to say.
I know we don't normally comment, just what was the second area, Ramon and,
Between Sunrise and Grenfall.
right?
And then
there was one-
between Caballeros and Encilia. So those are two areas without many crosswalks and where there's a lot of jaywalking all the time. And it's really dangerous because, there are tourists coming from the resorts and they go in both directions. They go towards the Ralphs and the CVS, or they're headed towards downtown. And that's just, wouldn't be good publicity if we had a situation with tourists or with residents. So I think it's something worth looking at.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And are we still, well, we'll get to it during your report. We can talk a little bit about hotspots. Yeah. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. I hope everyone had a wonderful few months break, and I hope staff enjoyed not having to attend a bunch of meetings. And here we are. We're back at it. It's season, and it's great to see a full commission. And we're kind of the Measure J 2.0. I don't think we have any. Well, we obviously have no original members left on this commission, so we are the new squad. And I'm excited to welcome Linda and Fran as part of the commission, and welcome aboard. And we look forward to working with you and all working together. I think that's about all I have. Just some housekeeping. Make sure that when you speak to turn on your microphone, speak into the microphone clearly, and when you don't speak, turn it off. Sometimes I get a little bit of reverb back in the control room if you leave your microphone on, and Ariana's pretty good at kind of giving you the evil eye if you've got it on. So in a respectful way. So. That's about that. We'll go to the city manager's report now, and Marcus Fuller will, yes. I did welcome them. Yep. You felt welcomed, right? Okay, great.
Could I ask that we get a updated list with everybody's phone number and email so we can get to know each other on an individual basis as well? I'm Sid. Nice to meet you.
And Ariana, maybe you could, or someone could, regarding the Brown Act, how many people can we communicate with legally? If we were to email, as far as not in a meeting setting? It's 4 or less. We have 9 people, so it's got to be under the
As long as it's not a majority.
Is that what it is? I thought it was, okay.
And for like subcommittee stuff, can they send out an email to the whole, if they have something to share as far as any subcommittee, if they have something for us to look at, a pamphlet or whatever that's in the works?
Distribute, they can send it and I can distribute.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we're compliant.
But we
So,
can't comment back and forth,
No.
right?
correct. I don't think there should be any email comments
Yeah.
back and forth. I can't,
Well, the subcommittees do that, but that's 4 or less people.
Right.
There could be up to 4 people on a subcommittee, and they can do subcommittee work. But then we would send it to Ariana, and she would then forward it to everyone else. We would not be doing that.
and if we feel it should be an agenda item, please email Ariana and let her know, and that can be an agenda item either under new or old business. And we can hash out whatever it is here. So, all right, Marcus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I do have to leave early, but I just wanted to note, if you didn't hear the report last night, we did get bids on the downtown park. So you will recall that we got no bids the first time around, which made me concerned that the bids we would get would be significantly high. And in this case, we got 3 bids. The low bid is 7.6 million, which was right on the money as far as our estimate. The next bid was 10.9 million, and then the third bid was 13 something. So there's a 3 million spread between each of the 3 bids. And so we did get a bid protest from the second low bidder, and that's being evaluated by our office and the city attorney's office. And provided that the bid protest doesn't bring up any legal findings that would require us to find the low bidder non-responsive, we would move forward to award the low bid. So we're going through that process. So the good news is I've had conversations with the low bidder who says their bid is complete. They haven't left anything out of the bid. They're prepared to move forward with the project. So the good news is, if that's the case, and we can do the whole project, because I had bid it with deducts, so that if the bids came in at 15 million and we wanted to not do the police substation or not do the water feature or whatever, we could carve things out, and I had hoped that we wouldn't have to do that. So so the good news is that between the Quimby funds and the Measure J funds, we have the funds available to do the project.
So what's the timing for awarding the contract? And does the bid include anything to do with maintenance, or is that?
No. So there's no maintenance, and that's why it's important that you continue to fund the downtown maintenance line item, because it's going to be expensive to maintain this park and the water feature and the substation and the restrooms and everything else downtown. So hopefully we can have the item. At this point, we're going to plan to award on the 2nd. It depends, though, if the second low bidder has a right to appeal our decision on the bid protest, and that just further delays the process. But definitely by October 23rd. The second meeting in October is moved from the 16th to the 23rd, so it'll definitely be awarded in October.
One more question. Is there any indication of when they would start?
At this point, I don't know. It usually takes 4 to 6 weeks to get contracts, bonds, and insurance. And so, I mean, you're looking at them starting in the middle of holidays. So my guess is they'd probably start after the first of the year. But we'll know more once we award a contract.
Commissioner Craig.
From your experience, when I saw those numbers, the 7-something, 11, 13, in your experience doing this all the time, is that unusual to see such a huge amount of difference between bids?
Yes. I mean, this is a lump sum bid. So usually when we have our regular, street sidewalk projects, it's a unit price bid schedule, and everybody's bids are generally in the same ballpark. Like we just had the bid opening, I'm stealing your thunder, but we had the bid opening for the next big paving project, which was, the low bid is 8.5 million, because remember, council wanted to do 2 years at once. So the low bid was 8.5 million, the next bid was 8.9 million, the next bid was 9 something. So they were all together. So it's a little unusual, but again, it's a lump sum bid, so it's hard to really understand why one bidder looks at it one way and, and it works to our advantage too, because it's a lump sum bid. So it's not like they can say, well, you left something out. Well, we know we didn't, because it's a lump sum bid. So the plans and specs say what they say. And
Because I was looking at it, and when I saw that on one of the bids, my numbers are not exact, on the water treatment, it was like 650,000, and the next one was over $1 million something. And I thought, boy, that's a big jump. That's what I'm asking.
yeah, it's
Thank you.
hard to say.
Marcus, what was the original budget for that park? And the original budget, did it also include the sculpture park that was across the street?
No. No, the
I thought those
original
were lumped
park
together at
estimate was
first.
about 5.5 million, but that was before we really had this large police substation, which added over 1 million. And then we added in, some stuff in the garage, a new stair, some other things that got added, as we developed the final scope of the project. So, but in the end, it came in right on Rios's estimate. They had a formal estimator that had provided their estimate, and
Well, and I knew that we had steered away from the sculpture park and where the house was going to go, and at least in the final design meetings. But I thought originally the budget included that park so that it would all get kind of done at the same time. So basically, it will just be the one park we're not going to be touching across the street at
Correct.
this point.
Yeah.
And I know that Grit has to add some decking over that.
that's correct.
And then, does this bid also cover the, that stair? Because I thought Grit there was some issue with that southern exposure on the parking ramp.
Yeah,
where
this includes demoing the old stairs that went to the mall on the 3rd floor, and then includes constructing another stairway down below, so you can have another exit up from the underground garage up to the surface for the park. So it's everything. Yeah.
It's everything. So the parking garage is done. Was there going to be a new elevator or something installed in there? Or
No,
something?
we ultimately chose not to add a 3rd elevator there.
Okay. And that was just something I had heard from Grit a while back, and I wasn't sure on that. So, okay, so at least that parcel, it's covered.
Yeah, so I just wanted to remind the commission, so you had budgeted 3.25 million, and then we allocated what was to be paid to the Andaz for the parking at the Andaz Hotel towards the park. So there's 5.25 million in Measure J funds, and then the balance is coming from Quimby park fees. There's 8.9 million total. So, so the good news is we don't have to try to cobble together or steal from other budgeted Measure J projects. Although you have some good news coming your way from Nancy that I won't steal your thunder either. But anyway, so
Okay. Thank you.
any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I know that the Fire Station 4 was complete and had a dedication since our last meeting. Could we just sort of have an update on that and what its sort of final figures were and so forth, if anyone can do that?
I mean, I can quickly talk on it. I was there and had to give a 2-minute or under speech. The facility is beautiful. It is done. It's fantastic. It's got all the,
Over budget or any of that kind of stuff?
oh, as far as that, I don't.
That's what I was
Yeah.
concerned.
I know that the fire department wants more done. That's for sure.
The final cost was like 4.1 million. There were a couple of change orders, but I think he'll give you an update on it. And also the police department's done. So the takeover contractor was wonderful and finished 5 weeks early, but I'm sorry, I'm taking your thunder.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. All right, we'll move on to the finance director's report. Hello, Nancy.
How you doing? Okay, I do have good news this time. So we're just about wrapped up 6/30/19 last fiscal year. And so far that's come in, we had an increase of what we projected last month of 1.133737. So if you're looking at page 3 or item 3, you will see the revised actual estimate and unallocated funds available for budgeting. So we now can rebudget that money, $1.1 million. Now, since we did get, if you look at the top where the estimated revenues are 16 million, I cannot change this until mid-year, but your next year will increase by 4% over the 16,043. And that should bring you another 1.3 million over to spend. So that number's going to be approximately at 4%, 16,685. So that's good news. Now, the only reason I put up their revised actual estimate is because in October, the auditors come in and they match all the revenues with what we have received from the state to make sure that everything's in conjunction with what we recorded. So in case there are any adjustments to be made, that's why I put actual estimated. So once we have the audit actually completed, we will confirm those numbers, but I have a feeling that they are all correct. Any questions on that?
Yeah, great news. Does our street repairs, does that go up because of they're doing 2 fiscal years or not? Does that stay the 3 million for 2019, 2020? I don't know who. I'm probably asking a dumb question, but the 3 million for street repairs, I know that council approved to do 2 years and 1 year. So does that double or not? Are we looking ahead now to 2019, 2020?
So it doesn't double, we simply use the money for the next year, and then we're
Right.
borrowing.
Well, yeah,
from it,
we
right.
borrowed the 3 million under 2021.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted, okay. No. Questions or comments?
So are you saying that even though the budget has been approved, that from city council, which, can't remember what that was, 12 something, that we still are going to have money left over that we need to allocate?
So right now, if you're looking at your chart, you'll go to revised actual estimate. So I think our projections were conservatively at 14 million estimated revenue, but we got in 16 million. So over what we already budgeted out at the last meeting for what we knew was going to be over the amount. We also, at the end of this closing of the 630, we have an extra $1.1 million. If you go to the bottom line, it says unallocated new funds available for budgeting, so that we can go ahead and budget for ongoing projects here. And then the next fiscal year, which we budgeted for 1920, you'll see a 4% increase, but because the budget has been adopted, I will take that during mid-year, which is around December, January, and ask them to increase that, and we can increase the project expenditures by the amount that we're going to increase the revenue.
So basically, at this point in time, we have $1 million unallocated.
Correct.
Okay, good news.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
I know, everyone's got good.
I just like things in simple terms, and so, I'm going to round it up and say basically, that you're saying we really have $1 million that hasn't been allocated. So as we begin to think about projects, and, there's always some, I wouldn't call them emergency, but something that comes up halfway through the year, we can keep that in mind, that we still have that amount of money that city council has not allocated in any way.
That is correct, and that money will be put into your unallocated projects. So if something does come up and we just need to go to council and say, okay, this is what we want to spend the money on, and we just move that from the unallocated to the specific project on what you vote on.
Thank you very much.
And this is also separate from the line item for community projects. So there's the $1 million slug number for community, and then what fell with the confetti.
That's correct.
An additional 1.1 to be programmed, to be approved.
Exactly.
Great. Good news. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Okay, so Staff report and updates. Let's continue the good news.
Well, I will try. First, I got to go backwards and correct something on the date of the memorandum. It does say September 21st, so technically we're not meeting on Saturday. We're meeting today, so we'll change that to the 19th.
Memorandum.
Sorry, on page 1 of item 4. So, would the commission want me to go through each project or highlight a few? Since we have some new members, maybe we can touch upon each one of these projects.
Yeah, I think if you go quickly through each project, because we do have new commission members, and I think it would be great for them to understand where we are in this process and because these are things that we have already approved.
Okay. So the very first project here is, as Marcus was mentioning, it was a police department remodel. We did four areas of the police department. We had a little problem with the first contractor who we had to let go. We've since hired a new, the surety took over and they completed the project. So I think tomorrow is actually the last day for the contractor to be on site. There's still work to be done, small, miscellaneous, what we call punch lists, and the contractor will be working on that. For the most part, the police department has occupied all the spaces.
Can I just say, and everybody should go in and see the lobby, it's unbelievable. It's beautiful. The seal of the police department is all done in tiles in the entrance, and it's really special. Oh, sorry.
And
Say it
you can
again.
turn it off.
Thank you.
So there's little problems that are arising. There's a full, thick, bulletproof separation between the lobby and the staff, and there's an opening for people to talk to, and actually they found that it was too thick and too hard to actually listen, so we're going to have to actually put some microphones to get people to communicate with each other. So little problems, but they're solvable. Yeah. So the next project is, as Marcus was mentioning, is a downtown park. He gave you the story there, so I won't spend too much time on that. Hopefully the project goes well. We're finding that a lot of contractors from outside the area are proposing on projects and are not doing a lot of self-performance, so that creates some problems, but we'll try to work with the contractor, whoever gets it, and hopefully we'll have a good project at the end.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
The maintenance that was put in, I think it was $500,000 a year for the park, is that right?
I don't think we ever saw, did we ever see an estimate on that?
No, that's not Measure J funds.
So it's just out of the city, so it's not out of ours?
No, not that we saw. Did we even have an estimate of what it was gonna cost to maintain the park?
I don't have it in front of me. I don't know
There
if
is a
there's.
downtown property maintenance and other expenses of $525 going up to $625.
Yeah, that's the number that Marcus was mentioning earlier that
But
we
that's
will need
for
to.
everything downtown,
Yeah,
right?
downtown, and the park technically
The
is
park
considered
will add
part
like
of
another
downtown. Correct.
$100,000.
Correct.
That comes out of Measure J. So
Well,
then-
what he's hoping that will cover that 100,000 increase.
Okay.
And would that 100,000 increase include that all the water features and all the?
Yeah, I don't have all the specifics of
Okay.
what that would be.
Because I know that that's costly, so I was just curious. Okay.
So, excuse me, the Cornelia White House is progressing.
Sorry, I had one more question about the downtown park. Marcus had just said that for the Measure J funds, it was closer to kind of 5.25 since we moved the Andes, the parking structure. So just maybe we could make that note.
Okay, yeah, we'll correct that.
Thank you.
So the next project is the Cornelia White House that's being worked on. They're making a good progress on that. There's been a lot of work done to retrofit the ties and the flooring, and I think they finally got to a system where the structural engineer gave designs that would work. Really trying to retrofit it on the fly, and I think that's projected to be done by October.
And it's not going over budget?
I think there are change orders that have come in. I'm not certain of the original budget was and where we're at, but I do know that there is additional money being spent on trying to retrofitting the building.
So if that project needs additional funds, I would like you to see if you could bring that back at the next meeting, since we have some unallocated money here. I don't want the project to languish. It's under, it's an ongoing project, so I would just want to make sure that it's fully covered.
Understood. Yeah, if there is a need for additional funds, then we don't have a funding source, we'll come back to the commission and ask for more money.
And hopefully you'll have another funding source.
I believe the balance came from other funding sources, so, yeah.
We like that, thank you.
So, fire station number 4, as Jim as Commissioner Gazan had mentioned, he attended the grand opening. I actually was on vacation, didn't get to attend the project that I had been working on for a while, but I heard it was a great success. The building is occupied. The firefighters are living there and taking calls from there. We're still working with the contractor. This contractor, we didn't let him go, but we are having substantial problems closing out the project. There are certain things that punch list items that they don't want to do. So it's been a challenge to try to close out the project, but we're working towards completing it. The community hotspots, Mr. Ueno.
Yeah, so just a reminder, the community hotspots, when Measure J was started in 12, we had put out a community-wide, I guess, almost like call for projects, where different neighborhood organizations and community members submitted projects, and then the Measure J Commission reviewed all 260 somewhat projects and broke it down into 3 groups of about $1 million each year. We did the first 2 years, and then we didn't do the last year. We put it out to bid last year, and the bids came out way higher than we ever expected. Then the council asked that we apply for grant funding for that project. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant funding, so we went back to the Measure J funds. This time, the bid prices came right perfect. So we just opened bids on September 5th. Same scope. Actually, it's a smaller scope. But also what we did was, if you remember, the Warm Sands neighborhood came to ask about their sidewalks. We submitted that for a different grant funding, which we did receive. So we're...
Yeah, the scope kind of changed because other projects have picked up pieces of those gaps. So it was modified to just pick up the ones that weren't.
And are the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the difference between the $1 million in Measure J funds and the 1.25?
Yeah, so we got about $140,000 from SB 821, which is a state grant, and then we are also using the leftover funds that was from the first 2 years. So that's how we cobbled together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And are those sidewalks, is that mainly along Sunny Dunes Road, or?
So we have Alejo, Amado, Baristo, Camino Real, Indian Canyon, Racket Club, and Sunny Dunes.
So Sunny Dunes, so they're looking at adding a sidewalk at least on one side of the,
On one side.
that's consistent, the
Yes.
length? Just out of curiosity, a ballpark figure, do you know how much it costs to put in, like on Palm Canyon, a pedestrian crosswalk with the remote and the blinking lights?
The fully signalized intersection.
You know, the ones that we've added on
Yeah,
in
we have good-
Uptown?
I don't. Right, they're not
It's not
inexpensive.
cheap.
Yeah,
but
it's not
I don't
inexpensive.
remember on the top of my head.
And I'm
Right, I
just
thi-
curious, in hotspots, was there ever a crosswalk considered for, in that neighborhood of Warm Sands to cross near the, kind of west of that shopping center? So that was never,
The hotspots that have been identified, Alejo, Amado, Baristo, and so on, those have been confirmed with the property owners that they want sidewalks as well?
Yeah, when originally the project was put out, there was a full,
Yeah, there was a lot more streets on this list, and then when staff reached out to the property owner, they said absolutely not, and so we cut out
those have been
streets
cut
as,
already.
right, and so these are the ones that we have agreements with. I also, before we opened bids, because it's been so long, I sent them out a letter saying like, don't forget, you signed this letter allowing us to go onto your property, and you need to take out your landscaping and all kinds of things. So I just gave them a reminder letter that we're coming through with the project, so, yep.
And again, if we were to revisit hotspots at some point, and maybe it should come from 1PS, that they could reach out to the neighborhoods, we could maybe consider a hotspots 3.0 at some point down the road. I mean, obviously, there's some issues still out there, and I know Ramon is an issue. We've had homeless people killed on that street after dark. And so I'm not completely satisfied that we've exhausted this issue completely as far as pedestrian safety. So I guess I'm putting that out there for even the commission to think about for a
right,
year or two.
there's
down the
other
road.
avenues as well. We do our traffic calming process that we have online that gets neighborhoods involved in traffic calming, crosswalks, stops, and things that they want to see. So there's a whole process that we have on our website that they can follow, and that could trigger us to do more work and take it up with.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to know, there's some hope out there for some residents that feel pretty strongly about some of these areas. Okay. Yes.
Question for Dom, on the line of, still with the hotspots, the $1 million allocation of Measure J funds, that's prior years, or is this the current year that we were contemplating?
That was
Prior year source?
because this year is the park. Yeah,
This year we're going to downtown park.
Mhm.
yeah, so that was the prior years.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'll try to get through these quickly. The main library model, I think Measure J met with the city council and allocated some funds. The last allocation, or earmark, I should say, 1.35 million. With the previous amounts that were allocated to the project, I think the fund is up to 1.9 or almost $2 million and set aside for the library. Don can talk a little bit about the Palm Canyon pedestrian enhancements.
The Palm Canyon pedestrian enhancements, this was one that our former commissioner, Christine Hammond, championed. Basically, we're using community project funds to leverage against a CVAG grant that we received. So there was a $10 million call for projects from CVAG. City of Palm Springs won several of those projects totaling about 6 of that million. And so the $1 million in community projects funds is like the matching grant. So, so that's that. It's currently under construction. This one will involve new signal poles on Palm Canyon, which similar to Indian Canyon, we were told 40 weeks for Indian Canyon to fabricate and ship the traffic signal poles. We're hearing 55 weeks now, so it's just getting worse. But
yeah, to that end, we're the city. I've been asking around. I called the city of LA, called city of Long Beach, other cities. I actually called. There's a pole manufacturer out of Riverside that does traffic signal poles, but he's not one of those two that that have been reviewed and approved by Caltrans. And I asked him the question, well, what are other cities doing? Is anybody buying from you? And he basically said yes. Like the city of LA adopted the 2006 version of the Caltrans standards, which is, in addition to the poles taking a very long time, I don't know if anybody's seen the poles that are going up on Indian Canyon. They are robust. They're quite big. And that's based on the most current standard that Caltrans went back and did a seismic analysis, wind analysis. And I think I asked around with traffic engineers, and they feel that Caltrans is a little bit conservative a little bit too conservative sometimes, and other agencies such as Long Beach and LA use the other standard, and they still hold up. I would say 99% of the traffic signal poles in the city are from the older standard, and they've held up. So we're looking at a way to, one, change the standard or adopt the older standard that still we think is safe. And we're also looking at, by doing that, we can actually go to a manufacturer that's here local in Riverside and get the poles within 18 to 20 weeks.
So do we pay more too by going through the two manufacturers that are chosen by Caltrans?
Well, that's interesting. Yes and no, because they are the two manufacturers that deal with the DOT here in California. They actually do produce in bulk. So sometimes producing in bulk may help. There might be a cost savings there. There may not. We haven't compared them yet.
Yeah, I'm just overkill too. If these have these giant bases, our sidewalks aren't plenty in some area, and it's like now that becomes a
correct. It
problem
becomes
with
an ADA issue.
and-
And correct.
Yeah.
So we're looking at ways to mitigate that.
So right now we're not on track for two-way conversion before the holidays, probably.
The two-way conversion, Indian Canyon two-way conversion is the next project. We are on track to finish in January.
Okay. But then what's being held up is these
The
multi-directional diagonal crosswalks
Correct.
on Palm Canyon?
Right.
Okay.
So the two projects have done exploratory borings. We know we're making adjustments. So what we do before we go in and order the poles, we go and find out if there's issues with obstructions underground. And I think we're trying to clear the issues right now and redesign or reorder or order poles that would fit in this area. So the project hasn't ordered the poles just yet, right? No? Okay. And with Marcus, he really wants to see if we can do the adoption of the new standards prior to ordering these poles so that we could actually get those poles sooner than we anticipate. So it's still. So the park room ADA upgrades right now, I think we're still in the RFP phase or researching and putting together one project for design. There's a smaller project that's going to be done on Sunrise Park. We're going to take one restroom and renovate it. So that's going to be kind of like our template moving forward for restroom upgrades of the older facilities. But right now we're only working on the RFP or looking at creating one RFP. The Measure J funds that were set aside are $1.6 million. Mark has mentioned the next project, which is the 1901 pavement rehabilitation project, where a list, I think the commission asked for a list of all the streets. That's actually included in the agenda packet with exhibits. In color, they look a lot better because they're GIS exhibits, but it gives you a general idea where each one of those streets are. And in relation to, I guess we didn't put the neighborhoods on here, but the list does tell you what neighborhood each one of these projects is in.
You can view it online already in color.
Okay.
It's uploaded.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say anything negative. I was just. So the project, I think we are preparing the staff report, and we open bids, right? And Marcus did mention that. We're going to council to award October 2nd.
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
The bathroom at the Sunrise Park, is that the bathroom by the baseball?
Yes.
On the east side?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that one is in dire need of attention, and we're working through that. Interestingly enough, once you think it's just, you can fix it, but you start asking a lot of questions. The old buildings had door openings that were smaller than what's currently ADA acceptable. There's no ventilation in the restrooms. There's lots of things that in the past were okay, now they're not. So when you try to create a quick project to fix a quick problem, you really start discovering what really is wrong and what it's going to take to actually get these facilities to just meet today's standards. So that we're working through that process right now. We're trying to get all the stakeholders, Parks and Rec and different people to weigh in on what should a park look like. Taking into consideration that some areas have a lot of frequented by homeless folks, and we're trying to, make sure that what we put down is, durable and meets the city standards.
Commissioner Craig.
I know with the ADA, when it started in 1992, is there a moratorium for all the curbs in this city have to be done by a certain date?
I think there is no moratorium. There is a plan in place for the city to do the ADA upgrades, but I think the federal government is allowing each local agency to do it at their own pace as long as they're following the process. And one of the things the city does is when they do their pavement rehabilitation projects, they go in and upgrade every single ramp that's being touched by those projects to meet the current ADA standards. So we're meeting the criteria
Thank you.
of our transition plan.
Commissioner Craig.
Do you have any, so this restroom at Sunrise, is that approximately 40 or 50 years old, do you think? Was this the restroom that was put in when the stadium was built?
I believe it is. I don't know for certain. I know it's an older restroom, and I think it's.
Okay, but it's not cheaper to just demolish and build a new one?
Those are things that we're weighing.
Okay.
You mentioned that you're preparing the RFP. Would the RFP be for all restroom bathrooms or?
Yes, it's going to be, the RFP request for proposals is to get an architect or a designer on board
across all
to
parks.
be able to go and do all our parks
Great.
and look at it as one whole. But like I said, we have this one opportunity to do this first restroom to see what works and what doesn't work. And what
Makes sense. Great.
So, moving on, fire station number 1. I think we're also working on trying to hire an architect that would then help us establish what should be done and what we can do, what design aspects are going to be used for fire station number 1. And Measure J allocated $800,000 for design on that one.
And this is the one downtown on Indian Canyon?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And will there be a joint effort with the tribe possibly to fund that renovation?
I know that's been asked of council, and I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
The next project down is the Sunrise, the one we were just talking about. So we've got about we do have $15,000 for the design, and we're working towards getting that complete. The next one down is an upgrade to the police communication system. I think our IT department is spearheading that and has started the process. The IT director indicated that he's had some experience doing this type of the exact same system in other agencies, so that should work out well. The CD yard HVAC chillers, that is a project that we're also hiring a consultant to do the design, and that's in process right now. Keyless entry, this is the second phase of the keyless entry. The first phase is already ongoing. We're going to each one of the facilities are the city hall, the police station, and I believe it's the city yard, right? And fleet, yeah. So we're currently upgrading the system, and the keyless entry phase 2 will just be the second phase of that. So, yeah, go ahead.
So the next one is the life safety improvements. So this is basically all of our older facilities that do not have fire sprinklers or fire alarms. What we're being told is that this particular design requires a specialized safety design consultant. So, we can't just throw out a wide net, say, bid on this project. We have to, actually go to these types of companies that have experience, know what the requirements are for that design. So we just started that project. So
I noticed that you have the library in this one, so if the library was going to be remodeled, would that be pulled out of it and it would just be put into the construction costs?
yeah, I mean, whatever costs probably that would have gone to the library, when that process is finished, you know, I'm sure we're going to need a lot of money for the library, whatever it's chosen. So, or it could just be reallocated by the Measure J Commission.
So currently there is there a sprinkler system in the library?
No.
No. Oh.
Who's paying for the Demuth Center? Where are they getting their money if they're not asking for you for money?
That project started earlier, right?
Right.
So the city council funded that from other funds, not
Okay.
Measure J money. Yeah.
Thank you.
The generators, I think, Don, you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the generators, I know, you know, during our joint meeting with city council, those of you that were on the commission as well as the city council said this was a priority. We have the RFP for our on-call electrical engineers to design that. And this is for the animal shelter, leisure center, pavilion, and the library. So we started. It's basically the update.
HVAC.
So this water treatment program for HVAC systems, basically we're basically modernizing the HVAC systems to simplify this. We do have a consultant working on the specifications, and they're about 80% complete. So once they're complete, we can put out a project for contractors to bid on it. Recreation fields, LED lights. Basically, if you haven't noticed, we use some really old metal halide lights. A lot of them have been going out. I believe they're even talking about bringing in some mobile light towers because,
Yeah, we're not
there's
able
just-
to, yeah, Stacy mentioned that we're not able to get the lights anymore. She's kind of did a broad net to try to buy as many as she possibly can, but the project is needed.
And then the other thing they found out, as these lights were burning out, you know, they looked at the electrical connections to these light towers and, you know, they've just buried a wire in the ground. And so now they have to hand dig and trace where did it fail. And so that's a bigger project than we anticipated, but so we are working to get this one done, and I believe that's the last.
Yeah, that's
Measure
sort of
J.
our update on the current projects.
So on the last one with the recreation fields, we just allocated money for the design, then we'll have to come back and look at it once we have a better feel for what the project is.
Right, as Don, yeah, as Don just said, we're discovering a lot of other issues, so it might be the price tag may grow.
Okay, thank you.
Question? Dom, teach me yet again, teach me something new, yet again. The ultrasound evaluation.
Oh, yeah,
What
so-
does that test for?
Basically, what they wanted to do is to see if the poles where the lights are on, can we reuse them? So they, rather than, like, is it termite damaged? Is it, and so basically the consultant did a quick ultrasound of each pole and found out that we pretty much can use most of them. So it's just attaching the lights on
So
that.
it's a formal evaluation of like structural analysis of the pole. Is that
Wooden and metal, I mean, but,
Right.
the thing was, if we had to bring in new poles for all these fields, it'll cost a lot more money. And so we were just trying to see, is it viable to reuse them? And luckily it is, so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Good job. We got through it. Anything else from staff?
And Don, you want to touch a little bit on the bigger project for all the facilities that we're trying to work on, or? No, it's not major. Okay.
As you can see, there's a lot of park projects, there's a lot of facility projects. The city council did approve approximately 4 million, it might be $5 million of just facilities that are, deteriorating. Is it new doors? Is it new windows? A new roof? Just routine maintenance that has been deferred because, we've been deferring some of our improvements. But so we're in addition to all of this, we're going to look at our existing facilities. This is actually not being paid with Measure J funds. It's being paid out of our capital projects fund. But that's just, like cleaning our house. We were just trying to get it maintained.
Right,
So,
right. And like in addition to that, we have 6 federally funded bridges. The first of which is we're almost close to finishing the right of way. We basically have all the properties we need. That's on Indian by the railroad, over the railroad. We're widening that. Right. So that project is slated to get the final federal approval for construction around March. So we might go into construction there. Then we'd move on to Ramon Road widening, Vista Chino widening. The Vista Chino widening is about a $96 million project. There's the Ramon Road. There's 2 on South Palm Canyon. So we're doing lots of good work.
It's East Palm Canyon, right? Kind of as you approach the Bob Hope Hill. So Indian over the railroad tracks, that will get widened. A bridge over Vista Chino, so that won't have to close anymore. Widening Ramon, widening Palm Canyon, East Palm Canyon. I know we've talked about. What else?
there's
You've
one
said 6?
South Palm Canyon by the KFC, that little bridge.
Oh, that's right. That's got to get widened as well, correct?
And then as well as also South Palm Canyon over the creek, Tuckwitz Creek, or no,
That's the same.
the one,
Well, there would be 2 on Palm
it's
Canyon.
like near Murray Canyon, up there. Yeah,
Oh, way south. Oh, okay.
yeah, way south,
Huh, all right.
yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Going once, going twice, you're off the hook. Okay, new business. I just wanted us to look at our roadmap again, and we, as a group, can collectively weigh in on our calendar for this year. I want to make sure that I think, as far as when it comes to our projects that we review and present to council, I think we benefit from having close to 3 meetings to kind of go over that and dissect it. And I think we've learned a little bit too from council that we can ask the tough questions of staff with some of these projects so that we're as educated as possible with making our decisions. So I guess we can keep that in mind as we look at this calendar. Obviously, we're in the September meeting. October pretty much is as is, and that is our capital project true-up, which will be next month. November, we'll review the list of capital projects not funded for this fiscal year. December, sometimes we don't have a meeting. I think last year we did meet in December, I want to say. And I don't know if it was because we had new members joining maybe right then.
It was earlier, so
We might have,
like 15, 16.
we met earlier in the month of December. So, I mean, we can decide, and that doesn't have to get decided today, correct, Ariana? We can kind of look at it on November and say, hey, do we need to see each other in December? And then January, the staff presentation of Measure J audit, and to continue to review the unfunded capital projects. So that would be kind of the start of really looking at what we're going to be presenting to council. Am I correct on that? Okay. And that would be looking at that. We would probably be given how many items, Joel? Do we know roughly, like 20 to 30 items of?
Yeah, I don't have a good idea of what it would, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it would be that many.
And then we typically, in years past, have narrowed it down to about 5 to stay within that budget. We got lucky this past year, and I think we had 8 or so that we could budget, so. February, again, that meeting, and again, feel free to chime in, anybody. February will, again, we really start to narrow in on these unfunded capital projects. March, staff presentation of finalized recommended projects, so sometime in February is when we will start to narrow down, vote as a group what we feel is important, and put that list together for council. April, we vote and finalize on that recommended capital projects list, and then May, of course, is our joint meeting. I think we lucked out last year that we were able to meet in May and actually have an actual Measure J meeting the week before we met jointly with council. And I think because we had a lot of new, latecomers to the commission, that was a really great meeting. We were able to kind of kick the tires a little more on that list. So, and then that leads us to May. Any additions, corrections up to that point?
No, I don't, I just need a clarification. So, the $1 million in the community projects, have we allocated that for this year already?
So the first 3 years was the community hotspots, right?
Right.
And then I believe, if memory serves me right, then the next 2 years was for the CVAG matching grants, right? Right,
Right.
for the Indian Canyon, Palm Canyon projects to get the $6 million. And then after that, it was the park, right?
Yeah, this year's budget,
Is-
this year's going to downtown park, I believe, 1920?
So we don't have any community project money that we need
But-
to discuss.
Yeah, but I think in the past, you guys have been kind of going 3 years ahead, right? So after the park, what would be the, like, next?
But
Topic,
what
not-
year is the park in?
I have to look back at my
The reason I'm
notes.
asking this
Yeah.
is, it's been a while since we really opened up
Yeah.
community projects to hear from the community.
Right.
And this calendar doesn't allow for any of that. And we have this $1 million that's unexpected. And I'm wondering, I would feel at some point in time in this calendar year, it would be nice to at least hear from the community. And I know we go to 1 PS and all the rest, but maybe just sort of put out a call that one of our meetings, the community could come and propose projects. And then, obviously, I'm sure there'll be more than we have money for, but at least we would have some ideas as to what they're looking for in the next few years. And since our committee is made up of people who have joined over the last year or recently, or maybe even 2 years, and may stay on this committee for the next 4, 5, 6 years, I think now would be a time to start their process. And so I don't know how other people feel, but that would be something I'd like to see added to the calendar.
Yeah, I agree with David. For some reason, I thought we were further out. I feel like we had something allocated for 2021, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So we're
Yeah.
caught up that this year is downtown park, and after that, it's a clean slate.
We'll double check our notes and make sure
Yeah,
that
and
that's the
I'll
case,
double
'cause I
check
know-
my
right,
binder,
and If
too.
we find something,
Well, yeah,
I mean,
we
yeah.
do need to move forward.
You need to
and-
start now, because when we build it, it's actually going to be 3 years from now, because you need to select your projects, we need to design the project, and then put the project out to bid. So by the time we need your construction dollars, we're right there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the year to start that conversation or process.
And the theme, right? I mean, what would be the
Well,
theme?
right.
Or
So,
does it
yeah.
have to be a theme? And I
Right.
think you can decide what it,
Well,
how that takes shape.
You know, I know the first year they did that because that's what really came out. So many people wanted that kind of a thing. But I would be, this is just me speaking, I would be hesitant to have a theme. I want to hear from the community, to have them come publicly speak to us, and then we can chat amongst ourselves as to, is there a theme or not a theme? I don't know that it has to be a theme. I think it just needs, it has been 5 or 6 years since we have reached out to the community to have a community meeting where we actually hear from citizens who don't belong to some 1PS thing or who don't belong to anything. They just have the opportunity. And I know these are open meetings and they could come at any time, but they don't because we don't really tell people that's what we're looking for.
I agree.
Yeah,
We should
so-
try and do that and not have a theme, because it'll develop out of that.
No, yeah, the theme may evolve based on what we hear.
Right, and we might start to see a theme based on what we hear. Ariana, let's just make a note for new business next month in October. Well, will we have time during that true up? At least just to put a plan together on communication? And we can discuss outreach maybe to,
Can we pick a month we want to do it?
I said October for next month, that we.
That we would have the community meeting.
Well, what we do is I think we put it out there, so in October, let's talk about our game plan as far as how we want to communicate out to the public, what avenues. 1PS obviously is a good one, but beyond that, and we've got people that send out things on nextdoor.com, et cetera, so we can discuss that. And then maybe we open it up for the public to come in, either, maybe that's our December meeting, if we choose to have a December meeting, and that's, that can be born out of our discussion next month in October of what resources we want to use at the city to communicate this, and then what month do we want that to fall into. And I would say it would be best I wouldn't go outside of the January meeting, because then we're going to get caught up into our unfunded capital projects. So I would probably look at December, January for public. Does that sound reasonable?
And don't forget, you need to give them time to submit the project. At least
Exactly.
a month and then staff needs to organize it to distribute to you. So it is a big process, but you guys can mull it over, think about how it was done or if you remember how it was done in the past, maybe talk to some of the old commissioners, lessons learned. I know they had some definite opinions that it took a lot of time.
I think lesson learned from what I gleaned from some past commissioners is there's danger in opening it up.
Yeah, so
Completely.
there's good and bad, no
Yeah.
matter what you do.
And that-
So,
They were of the belief that they decide amongst their commission. I'm open to seeing, casting a net. I think we all are. See what we get. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's our decision as a commission, and it's a small budget. It's $1 million, so it's not sky's the limit. So
Yeah, and I think maybe just kind of broadening our objective in general, it might guide this $1 million, but it might influence and shape how we're thinking in the next few years, and just soliciting feedback and impressions of what the priorities are. So maybe not saying like, how should we use this $1 million, but, what are priorities beyond kind of what we've already been working on? Might be a reciprocal approach.
and it could be a multi-fiscal, we might find something like hotspots, and it's, okay, we need $2 or $3 million to do this, so let's pull for the next 3 fiscal years, and this seems to be something we all strongly feel about, that maybe other community members feel strongly about. A lot of it usually is safety issues or parks. Okay. Yeah.
So, didn't the city technically adopted a 2-year budget?
Yes.
So, in May, when they're looking at the 2021, are they just looking at revisions to it, or?
If we go forward, I don't think we actually did the capital projects. I think they're all in I think they're all in unscheduled, but I will look into it and get back to you on that in the next meeting.
Okay. And then we have our May and our final meeting in June. And again, May and June are a little bit lighter. We can also allocate some of that time to discuss the future of community projects as well and finalize that by the close of this fiscal year. So,
I think it benefited us by, we're going to have to go back to the city council again to adopt the second year budget. Even though it was adopted as a 2-year budget, you always have to go back and you will have some modifications to the second year budget. So I think, again, it really helped us meeting before we all went to the council meeting. So we were all on the same page. We knew exactly what projects we wanted, what money we had. So I think that helped us prepare a lot. So when we did go to the meeting, it was a strong yes.
yeah. So you're saying in May, try to
I think so also. So we
tweak
do
our
the same
meeting.
thing again.
Yeah, okay, so we'll make a note of that May could be a flexible date before the council. Yeah, because that was a really great meeting in May.
Well, and my concern is that when we go back to council, 3 city councilors will have never heard from Measure J. And this will be new to them too. So they possibly will ask a lot more questions of us. And I agree. I think it was so much better to have that staff report and list and everything for us to just do. But I can imagine that there will be a lot more questions because 3 new city councilors will have never gone through this process, maybe know very little about
Maybe just
Measure
2.
J unless they've, or maybe 2. At least 2, okay. Maybe there'll be 3, but at least 2.
Okay, any more questions, comments regarding the roadmap? I don't think we have any public comment. Any staff member comments? No, it's commission member. So staff is good? All right, commission member comments. Commissioner Craig.
I just wanted to throw out an idea. When I looked at the list of all of the streets that are being paved, that's in the next year and a half.
It's happening in the next year.
And we've been talking about getting the word of Measure J back out there to the community. I've seen around in the last few years, we've seen those tall poles that have like a flag hanging from it, or a long piece of fabric and they blow in the wind, and they're in a heavy pole in the ground. I'm just thinking if we had something like that that said measured with our design of J, Measure J at work. And those poles were put in on every one of the streets that are being paved. In the next year, I think the public would start seeing it because you've got so many streets listed here. I don't think it would be that expensive to do. And I just think since we've been having funds allocated towards getting the word out, it's just a thought to think about. And it's something, could we at least look in to see what those would cost us? And
But if we were to do that, it would be very, I guess, prudent to do it with the contract. So we would come up with a design, a specification, we'd add it to the project, we'd bid it, and the contractor would be doing this for us. I don't think the city on its own should go and try to purchase these poles and try to drive them around. So it would be similar to the big signs that we make the contractors buy. That would be, if the commission.
I only thought of those poles, only from the standpoint that I thought, okay, if there was like sandwich boards, they're going to get knocked over, people are going to take them, they're going to get knocked over in the street. And I see in the wind, those poles, no matter what the weather is like, they seem to be fine. So it's just, it's
Well,
an idea.
And that dovetails nicely with our communication subcommittee, because I know they've worked on that and got some pricing. I glanced at your email
One of the things,
today.
I'm sorry to interrupt, one of
Yeah.
the things I didn't mention that in my head, I was thinking I was gonna do it and then it just kind of goes blank. For the fire station, we actually purchased a 24-inch by 24-inch plaque with the Measure J logo on it that's gonna go on the building. Just like the dedication plaque that's gonna be right next to it with the Measure J.
Oh, okay, fantastic. And, they printed a big banner that's, at that fire station as well. And I know we've talked about getting those kind of heavy cardboard signs back into rotation. I think I saw pricing on that possibly.
Yeah.
And I'll let Commissioner Lass, and that kind of addresses your concern, is just visibility and marketing around a lot of these street improvements.
Yeah, and we had some email conversation in a short meeting before the general commission meeting, and we will strive to have a budget for the full $10,000. It's not a huge amount, of course, but Commissioner Rahman has been working with PS1. We're going to do a presentation to them at their October meeting. We've been working with Ariana to pull together some collateral material, so there'll be a bifold with an insert that has, for example, the listing of all these streets that are going to be covered next year that will go out to
Nice.
to PS1. Although we don't have a full budget, what we would like to do or like to propose is that these Measure J at work signs, given the fact that so much of this street improvement is going to be coming online, even in advance of having a full budget, that we order, or the commission authorizes, that we order 50 of those in the same design. They cost about $46 a piece, because they're printed on both signs. They're not permanent structures by any means, but at least when streets are being done, we can, have those signs up there so people know that they're financed, at least in part, through the Measure J allocation. We'll come back with a more complete budget, because there are a couple of different ways that we can go, and we just had another idea from Commissioner Craig. But part of what we've looked at are these medallions that can be embedded in the sidewalk, so that there's kind of a little more permanent
I like
marker there to signify, that Measure J funding was there. And we have to look at the design, whether that's going to be, for example, the crest of the city, and then around it, something like Measure J project and the date or the year. And that's a possibility. We've talked before about they have these imprints that can be done into sidewalks. They're like $150 a piece. You probably only need 2, and you can change the date. So like all these sidewalks that we've been talking about that are being done would say Palm Springs Measure J project in the year, or something like that. We have to determine exactly what it is. That's really inexpensive. And of course, those are made from copper, and can be a copper alloy, and can be used over and over again for years and years. So there are a couple different possibilities. We're going to, as a subcommittee, spend a little more time figuring out how to allocate that. But in the interim, what we'd like to do is request that the commission authorize staff to order 50 of these more temporary signs, but you've seen them before, because the ones that we have pretty much gone through there's only 4 left, and they've been run over by trucks, and they're just not useful anymore. So the total cost for that would be around $2,300. But I think that does kind of keep the visibility of Measure J and the association with those paving projects kind of in people's minds.
Does that come out of the budget? that
Well,
council
I mean,
gave
those
us,
are
or-
those are always ongoing questions. We haven't actually had a budget before, so I don't know if that gets funded as it has in the past, or or if it can get funded from this or if we need to fund it from this $10,000 budget that was authorized by city council. Do you guys
It
have
would be
any?
coming out of the 10,000
Okay.
budget.
That's what I thought.
So 2,300. And I love the stamp idea. I mean, that is so economical. And it was done on a sidewalk like 10 years ago or so in my neighborhood. I don't know where it came from. I'm on the board of our neighborhood group. No one knows anything about it, but there's a little Sunmore stamp on the sidewalk and it looks very official and it's still visible 10 years later. So,
Whether that's funded.
great.
Could I ask, Councilman Luss, do you use the website, like a crawler that goes through on Channel 17? Do you publicize Major J completion or projects there? Or, I mean, that would be a free service, and while you're waiting to watch this commission meeting tomorrow, you would run through. These are completed Major J projects in our city. Anybody know?
Is that a name?
I
do-
don't think I've seen it.
We do, under the finance webpage, we do have Measure J, and if you click on there, it tells you when it began, what the money collected was, and what the projects were. Ariana and I looked at that the other day, and we are going to update that with the more current information.
But
what
that's on
lenders are-
your website. I'm talking about the television station.
Oh, okay.
That's recording, and in between, you know, they have a lot of dog park, water. I think that's a really good free public place to
Even
run
during the,
projects.
We have advertised there, but we can give them revised information.
Would it be part of the communications committee to kind of maybe take a picture and then work with our staff to just put this is the next project that's done, and then we would put that on, or would staff do the work on that?
That's a great idea, and I know there's been ongoing discussion too about, working with the public relations part of the city, because there's all sorts of not only email blasts, but posting on social media, and all kinds of those types of discussions have been coming up. There's a lot of kind of free publicity that we can do.
Would that go through Amy's Blaisdell's office? So maybe she could just get some slides, like, that fire station is so photographic. I mean, that would be great. You've got that big thank you Measure J banner on it right now. It'd be great to capture that image and then have that on.
Jim, even like when the council goes in recess in the evening, and it goes on for 10 minutes, it's just a single shot of the city seal. And it could be something else more promotional.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're all about free publicity. So.
Well, no,
and-
we don't know these things until we know them, so that's
Well,
a
and-
great observation, and I think, and I think Amy would help you guys tremendously on that. If the if you communication want to do that, she'll run with it.
And we've been, Brian in particular, have been reaching out to various parts of the city, and it looks like there's a lot more free publicity out there. We're getting a fair amount now. If you go onto the city's app right now, you'll see there are several things about Measure J that are kind of leading up to whatever search you do. But there's plenty more to do. In fact, do you have any comments you want to make about that?
Well, to add to the ask, in advance of a formal budget request or a deployment and allocation for the 10,000, part of the next cluster of next steps for us is community outreach through Denise Goolsby and the neighborhood organizations, and coming up in a few weeks, there'll be another citywide meeting, which will be an opportunity for the subcommittee to represent Measure J, have a little bit of our roadshow, and with that is the need for collateral. And we have, with Ariana's help, we'll be able to produce some modestly priced handouts and flyers. We'll do a run that will be based on what the printer says is a reasonable minimum production run, but we'll probably need to spend $1,000 or $2,000 in printing costs in order to have an inventory to present to the community who happens to be present, and using that minimum run, using that for subsequent neighborhood meetings. So just as just as we're asking for approval now to produce and pay for signs, it's to produce and pay for printing.
Well, and I'm not sure exactly what the procedure is, given the fact that there's been a city council allocated budget. But whether it requires approval or we just want you to know what we're doing, we thought we would bring that up and kind of ask what's the way forward.
I think technically we probably should bring it up for a motion and approve it. And I think, we have to keep in mind these signs don't last forever. We all know that. They get blown down by the wind and they blow into the street and then run over by 50 cars. And, unfortunately, that's just the nature of it. But when they're up and visible, the graphic is very bright and very clear that it's Measure J. And that's pretty common in most cities that you see. And it's definitely very cost effective. Commissioner Gray.
So as the other member of the Communications Subcommittee, I'm just going to propose that we allocate $3,500 out of the $10,000 today for signs and collateral, based on Ariana's judgment as to what's the most economical. I think we put together some ideas for her to produce them, but since we need some of these things before our next meeting, that's what I would propose. So obviously that would leave us more money to discuss at a future date, but this doesn't have to go to City Council because they've already allocated the funds, and this is certainly less than they would do anyway. So if people are in favor of that, I'm allocating up to $3,500 for both of these
I
projects.
second that.
I have a feeling this might get approved easily. All in favor of $3,500? Aye. All opposed? No. Okay. Or I wasn't a no. No one opposes. No, we voted on it. No, but we voted on it. We're still on this open.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah, we're still on this. I want to circle back to the calendar because we meet on the third Thursday of every month. I think 1PS meets
So that's why.
prior to us.
That's why.
So I wanted to, just revisit that, and I'm happy to go to the 1PS meeting, but should we go to the next 1PS meeting in October? So I'm kind of,
We're scheduled to speak.
you are scheduled, oh, you are already, okay, great. And that would be.
That's what the collateral's for.
I did
And I'm happy to be there.
Okay.
want to mention something about the calendar. I believe last night in the city council mentioned something about possibly moving the council meetings to Thursdays. So I was wondering if there's an interest in, I know Nancy sits through those till very late. I go to most of them.
Interesting.
So just to keep in mind that if that does happen, that maybe some of the later meetings would be changed to a different time or different day or something so.
Yeah, they were thinking about changing it to Thursday, so we'll have to see, maybe we could change this to an earlier time, or we could change it to the opposite of when the city council's Wednesdays, or we could do Wednesday, a little bit earlier on the Thursday, or alternate the Thursdays that it's not on the same one as the council meetings. So that's something to think about.
Okay.
I mean, some people work, so earlier is difficult.
Yeah, and I don't want to be earlier at all.
Okay, so,
I want to make sure we don't.
Well-
well,
I think you need more time between what you do here and think about what you do here and go to council. That would be, I need my brain to think a bit.
Well, and we can't use this room. I mean,
Yeah.
we would have to be done by, because they televise and they cut us off, so. All right, well, we'll cross that bridge.
But we'll cross that when it happens? I mean, they didn't make that decision right away, did they?
no, I think it's going to be going back to the council, their next meeting or the meeting after.
Okay.
So we should know by October if we need to change
Yes.
our date.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll
So
keep you
if we-
updated.
If we end up moving it to a Wednesday at the same 4 o'clock.
I would definitely not want to be
example.
earlier in the day.
Okay.
So, all right, we'll work on that, when that, if and when that happens. So we're prepared then and just, okay, and I'll put it on my calendar and so then that will be kind of our call out at that time, obviously, to think about upcoming community projects for
Well, I don't know
1PS.
if we shouldn't say that we're gonna do that if we don't have a date. So I would, that we might, that we're talking about doing it this year, but we don't have a date. So putting it out there, then people, you know, word gets out there, oh, they want community projects, but I think we need to tell them this is the day to come that we're looking for the community projects, rather than just sort of telling people, because then they're going to come in piecemeal, and we won't have any control over when people come. And so if somebody comes next month, let's say, and, oh, they have a fabulous project, and we all think that's wonderful. Well, they came because they heard somebody say that we were looking, and then the other person who didn't know that didn't have the opportunity to come. So I just feel uncomfortable.
But wouldn't it be, I wasn't here when this was done before, but wouldn't it be the commission kind of developing a framework for soliciting ideas as opposed to just throwing it open in
Well,
a public meeting? to
and
start?
That's what we have to discuss, how
Well,
we want to do
and
that.
keep in mind, this is 1PS only. So with 1PS, we want them to be the gatekeeper of a lot of ideas and have them come to us with a package. So they will have to fight it out amongst themselves in the neighborhoods, what they think is most important. Just like hotspots was a year in the making or more of a lot of different ideas, and they boiled it down to, for those reps, that hotspots was going to be their focus. And so that's what they presented, one idea to Measure J, and it came from that organization. So we can open it up down the road to the general public, but when we go to 1PS, it's up to 1PS to figure out what they think is important to them, and then maybe come to us, and we can say we're looking at possibly January, but get them thinking so that they can reach out to their neighborhoods, come back to 1PS, and boil down what they feel are maybe the way we do with council, give us their top 5 or top 3 priorities.
I don't think the idea of this meeting in October, though, was to do anything other than to highlight what we've been doing, raise consciousness. It wasn't to invite.
No, I realize that, and why I brought it up is because I wanted us to start talking in our next meeting of how we want to communicate to the public, and 1PS obviously being
But they have
a
meetings
good
every
tool.
month, so.
Well, they do. I just didn't know if we needed to kind of jump on it in October and not wait until November. But
Just-
Commissioner, go ahead.
Sorry, just a little bit of feedback on how we did it the last time. When the commission was ready, it was opened online, and they were given a time frame, and then they were able to submit their request online. It was only, I believe, 2 commissions that came and presented here, but they
And you're
could
talking
submit.
just commissions or general public?
No, the general public
Right.
was
Could go
encouraged to
online.
submit it online, and then it was auto-generated to a spreadsheet where the departments were able to work from. That eliminated the big binders of applications that we received the first time around. So once the commission is ready, then we can set a time frame, and then they can submit their applications, and then you guys can review.
Commissioner Soto?
Yeah, thank you for the context of all the work that the subcommittee, the communication subcommittee is doing. It sounds like it's been a busy summer. I also was under the impression it was more about building a kind of consistent relationship and dialogue with 1PS, and I think that's a great start. But I think I would agree with Commissioner Gray in that we should think of 1PS as part of all the communities and part of our outreach, and should be in conjunction with our overall outreach strategy and how we reach different residents of the community. I think 1PS is a great partner to have when we're ready to go, but it should feel regardless who we're reaching out to, it's the same strategy, it's the same tactics, and people feel like they have equal access to the commission.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to open it up to the general public. There are neighborhoods that are not in 1PS, and I don't feel that 1PS should just be the only way a person can submit. I think we need to let everybody in the community know. So I'm hoping that in October, when you go to 1PS, that it is an update on what Measure J has been doing, but not too much talking about what we're going to be doing to solicit in the future until we've decided that here.
Okay, and I want to make sure that everyone understands me clearly. I'm not zeroing in on 1PS only. I want this, we haven't even discussed this yet. This is what October's for. I was just concerned that if 1PS isn't, maybe we have 4 different ways that we're going to communicate to the public, and one of them is 1PS. I was just concerned that they meet in October before we do in October. So if we wanted to warm them up to the idea that, hey, we've got community project budget coming up for the next year, I'm just saying, do we want them to start thinking about it in October or wait until November and we'll go to the meeting in November? That's all I was putting out there. So wait at this point. Okay, that's fine. Okay, any other updates? I know we have there's we have a library subcommittee that works with, I don't even know, I can't keep track of all of their friends, commissions, boards. But I know Naomi's been involved and David's been involved in some aspects. I didn't know if you wanted to update the commission on anything.
Yeah, so earlier this year, Council Liaison Holstage asked me to join the Building Subcommittee. So it's a group of 8 or 9 community members, representatives of various commissions, and also just residents. So we have a pretty tight timeline. We started meeting in August. I think we've met like 3 or 4 times. And we have to make our final recommendations to the council by October. And so we have been meeting, we're moving to weekly meetings at this point. There's essentially 3 sites for consideration right now. There's the current site in Sunrise Park, there's downtown in Lot G, and then in collaboration with the COD on their new campus on Baristo or somewhere in that new lot, right? So we went through a pretty intensive process of identifying, in collaboration with staff, and then also there are some library consultants that have been really helpful too. They weren't at that last meeting, but they've been to most of them in person. So in coordination with them, we came up with a criteria that a lot of cities have used in determining where to build and kind of in development, library developments, and then considerations specific to Palm Springs based off of Palm Springs values and priorities and things like that. So we're in the middle of going through each of those sites and going through the criteria and considerations. So we just did Monday. On Monday, we went through Sunrise Park, and then we'll have the next following 2 weeks go through each of the sites. Staff is currently reviewing all land that they own, if there's any ones that we haven't thought of yet. But right now, we're primarily looking within those 3 sites. And then we'll make our final recommendations, and kind of like, if this doesn't work, putting some context to the recommendations as to if there's certain not programming, but if there's certain extraordinary logistics that might make it burdensome, other modifications, but that'll be all ready by October.
Great. Any other? Yes.
Just for the record, nobody's decided anything. There's, just want to make that very clear. It's a very intense process, but we're trying to do our due diligence and really giving each chance a fair consideration and understanding why one spot over another would not be appropriate.
Yeah, I'll just speak. I went and Commissioner Kazan went. We were there on Monday night and spoke our feelings. And so the committee can hear that, could hear that. And I don't, the meetings are videotaped, so if anyone wants to listen or, you certainly can go too. But I think it's an interesting process, and we'll see what the recommendations are. And I guess I can only say that at last week's meeting, I was kind of shocked at how many people there were, because the room, I think they said held 100, but there certainly were as many seats as that, and every single one of them would have been taken, and there were quite a few speakers. And so at least on the first site, there was a lot of passion, so we'll see what happens with the others. And I'm probably curious to hear what happens with the other two as much as anyone else.
Next meeting is, we're having every Monday at 5:30. And the next meeting will be at the Wellwood Library to give us a feel as to if we were to have a meeting, or if there was to be a library downtown, everything like the parking, the getting there, just kind of trying to mirror that. So if anyone's interested, it'll be at the Wellwood.
Yeah, thank you. And you're definitely on a subcommittee that has a lot of passion around it. So good for you. Baptism by fire, getting involved. So, anything else?
Do you want to have get the new commissioners on a subcommittee, or?
Yeah, we could. I don't even know what our subcommittees are. The park committee is pretty much, that's done.
The communication committee is technically, we could have one more person, because Commissioner Bixson has left that subcommittee, so there are 3 of us, but we could have another member. And I think that there are only 3 of us on the library subcommittee. I think weren't you on it as well? Yeah, I thought it was Commissioner Soto, myself, and Bernstein, but I don't know. Do you know if Oh, you were on the library. I'm sorry. Okay. So the library.
Does everybody know
what?
Okay. Okay, so park, yeah, because Naomi and I were on park, and
park
so is Sid, and that's done.
Yeah. So I just didn't know if there were any other subcommittees, and we can talk about that maybe at the next meeting. But
Sure.
those are the subcommittees currently, and obviously communication is busy and ongoing, but the library subcommittee probably could use some beefing up from this commission, because as far as funding goes, no matter where the building is, it's going to come to us. So.
Yep, absolutely. Great. Okay. We don't need to vote on that, do we? Okay, well then we'll appoint Commissioner Bernstein to be on that committee. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Excellent, we are adjourned. Thank you.